The rain poured relentlessly, drenching the narrow streets of a forgotten town. Amid the storm, a man named Daniel walked alone, his coat soaked and his head bowed. He had returned to the place he once called home, a place he had sworn to leave behind forever. Daniel was a man with a past he wished he could erase. Growing up, he was labeled a troublemaker, the kid everyone whispered about. Fights, reckless behavior, bad decisions. His teenage years were a blur of mistakes and regret. By the time he was 20, Daniel had earned a reputation as someone who would never amount to anything. Like father, like son, people would say, referencing Daniel's father, who had also lived a troubled life before vanishing without a trace. Determined to escape the shadow of his failures, Daniel had left the town with nothing but a backpack and a stubborn belief that he could outrun his past. He worked odd jobs, lived in rundown apartments, and struggled to find his footing. No matter where he went, though, the memories of who he used to be followed him like a shadow. Years passed, and Daniel built a life for himself. It wasn't perfect, but he had found stability and even success as a small business owner. Yet, he couldn't shake the voice in his head that whispered, "You don't deserve this. People like you don't change." The turning point came when Daniel received a letter that would change everything. It was from an old friend, Jake, who still lived in the town they had grown up in. Jake wrote about the struggles he faced, the dreams he had abandoned, and how he felt trapped by the same life Daniel had escaped. At the end of the letter, Jake wrote, "I wish I had your courage, Daniel. But some of us can't escape who we are." The words hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. He realized Jake was wrong. Not because Jake lacked courage, but because Jake believed the lie Daniel had once believed, that the past was a life sentence. Daniel knew he couldn't let his story end there. He decided to return to his hometown, not to prove anything to others but to face the version of himself he had left behind. When he arrived, the familiar streets felt like a ghost town. The same shops, the same faces, older, wearier, but still clinging to the stories they had always known. As Daniel walked, he overheard snippets of conversation. "Isn't that Daniel? Didn't think we'd see him again." At first, the old judgment stung. But Daniel reminded himself that he wasn't the same person who had left this place. He was stronger now, wiser. His first stop was Jake's house. Jake was surprised to see him but welcomed him in. They talked for hours, reminiscing and sharing stories. Jake confessed how he felt stuck, how he had given up hope of ever changing. Daniel listened, then said, "Jake, I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me. Your past doesn't define your future. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you've made or how many times you've fallen. What matters is what you do now, today. You can decide, right now, to write a new story for yourself." Jake looked skeptical. "It's not that easy, Daniel. People don't forget." "Maybe not," Daniel replied. "But their opinions aren't chains unless you let them be. You're the only one who decides who you are. Not them. Not your past." Over the next few weeks, Daniel stayed in the town, reconnecting with old friends and even volunteering at a local youth center. He shared his story openly, not shying away from the mistakes he had made but using them to inspire others. Slowly, the town began to see him differently, not as the troubled kid he once was, but as a man who had transformed his life. One evening, as Daniel stood before a group of teenagers at the center, he told them, "Every single one of you has a choice. Life will knock you down. It knocked me down plenty of times. But every time you get back up, you're rewriting your story. Don't let anyone, not even yourself, tell you that you can't change. You're not defined by the pages that are already written. You're defined by the ones you're writing now." The room was silent, but the impact of his words was evident in the hopeful eyes of the listeners. When Daniel finally left the town weeks later, he left something behind: hope. Hope that even in a place where stories seemed set in stone, new chapters could still be written. And as he drove away, he felt a peace he had never known before. He had not only faced his past but had transformed it into a source of strength, for himself and for others. Your past is a chapter, not the whole book. No matter how dark or messy it might be, the future is unwritten, waiting for you to pick up the pen. It's never too late to change your story. Start today.